So here is an interesting video that we're actually going to be looking at. So David Pakman had made a video basically saying, hey, look, I'm a business owner and my taxes went down. And this is indicative of how the tax cuts, like if my taxes are going down this much, imagine how much the taxes for the rich businesses are going down. And of course, we know that, businesses like Amazon, they get rebates in the mail. They don't pay any taxes. Verizon, Amazon, etc., etc. But Sargon of Akkad decided to do a response to, which is very interesting because Sargon sort of more, his sort of thing is feminist bad, SJW bad. That's really all he does. So I'm actually surprised. I didn't even know he had the mental capacity to do a video like this because all we see from him all the time is just SJW bad, feminist bad, I'm triggered because the feminist said this. Really lame stuff. So this one's actually sort of interesting. But we can stop calling... I never really called Sargon a liberal anyways, but he's not a liberal at all anymore. He's completely swooned to the right now, where we're going to get to later. He actually cites Milton Friedman as like an economic advice, which is hilarious because nothing's more liberal than citing Milton Friedman. The guy wants to abolish the FDA. And anyways, so first we're going to look at this first clip here. In this first clip, David's going to basically ask, like, what did I do to earn that tax cut? And Sargon's going to respond. Check it out.
But when it came to him getting a tax cut, it was amazing to see his ideological perspective sort of kick in and override his innate instincts on the situation.
So I finalized my business taxes over the weekend and then my personal taxes, and I got a much bigger refund than I did last year. Of course, the refund size doesn't really matter because your withholdings can change. What matters is your effective tax rate. My effective tax rate is way down. Okay, my effective federal tax rate for the 2017 tax year was 26.2%. My effective tax rate for the 2018 tax year, which I just filed, is only 22.9%. My tax rate effective has dropped on the basis of the Donald Trump tax plan by about 13%. This is a really big tax cut that I got.
In my opinion, David Pakman absolutely does earn his money. I don't think he's cheating anyone out of it. I think he earns it completely legitimately, and he deserves every penny that he earns. So how does David feel about it?
Now, what did I do to earn that tax cut?
That's a really weird question. Taxes aren't tailored for you personally. They're tailored for earning brackets in a progressive tax rate, which I assume you have. It's not... you don't need to earn a tax cut. A tax cut is earned by hard work. When you build a strong economy and you don't need huge social safety nets, then you earn it by being a better society that requires the government to do less for the citizens themselves. This is what being free is. It's taking ownership of your own life, being the person who makes the decisions and is responsible for the consequences.
All right, so Sargon says, he goes, you've earned it as a society. I don't even know what that means. I'm assuming he means like the economy's doing so well that you've now set up for lower taxes and that you don't need big social safety nets. First of all, our social safety nets here in the U.S., and I like how Sargon, like throughout the video, he says we, like multiple times, as if he lives in the U.S. or that he's a U.S. taxpayer. Which is like, dude, you're Carl of Swindon. You're not Carl of San Francisco. Why are you saying we? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And, the social safety net in the UK is a lot higher than it is here in the US. We don't have universal healthcare like they do in the UK. So the programs we're advocating for exist in the country he exists in. And so he gets to chill and, do his own thing while they have all the programs that we're supporting right now, that we're trying to get in the United States. But also, I want to say this. The purpose of a social safety net is so that it's there to be a net for people. And so first of all, there are a ton of programs that we need in the United States that we don't have currently. So universal healthcare, for example, healthcare costs are insanely expensive. Free college education is something else that we need, that a bunch of countries have. I guess the UK doesn't have it, but France and Germany and a bunch of other countries have it. And we could easily fund free college education. But so basically, there are all these programs that we, need to support and that we don't have right now, currently speaking. And a lot of those exist in the UK right now. So there's that. And then there is the fact that the purpose of a social safety net is for it to be a net. If you you can't lower the net every time you in your fantasy world the economy gets to a point where you don't need a social safety net, because that is entirely antithetical to the purpose of a social safety net. The purpose of a social safety net is for it to be there. And if you take it away, there's no more social safety net and it becomes lowered, and then you're setting yourself up for a doomsday. The point is, we need a large social safety net at all times. We need free college education. We need free healthcare. And then we also need welfare programs. And then we need to keep the social safety nets high. That's what we need. And so it's very antithetical to do that. And by the way, again, I want to repeat, earning it as a society doesn't mean anything. I don't even understand that. Are you trying to say that the economy is doing so well? That doesn't make any sense, because our economy right now is a house of cards. The economy is doing real well for the rich. It ain't doing so well for the bottom half of people in the United States. So, the stock market's booming, but what does that tell you about everyday people? Nothing. It doesn't tell you shit. And then the question of David asking, what did I do to earn the tax cut? And Sargon translates that to, well, you earned the money yourself. Yes, dude. And I think in my conversation with Sargon, he said that he was under the impression that, I forget exactly what he said. He said that he thought that, tax cuts means you're giving money to certain people or something like that. So here's the reason why he's saying, what did I do to earn that tax cut? This is the reason why. You have a progressive tax bracket, right? Progressive taxes means, the higher income you have, depending on your bracket, is the higher percentage you pay, right? So if you have a scale and you have the bracket set up, and then all of a sudden you lower certain brackets, once we have it in an ideal position, or in any position, because right now it's not in an ideal position at all. We want to raise taxes, not lower them. Now we want to lower taxes on things like small business and different things like that. But we certainly need to raise taxes, not lower them. Remember, Trump's tax cuts, 83% of it went to the top 1%. So these aren't taxes for the normal person. They're taxes for the top. And that's what David's trying to say here. He's trying to say, yo, dog, if my taxes are going down, imagine how much the big businesses are going down in terms of their taxes, and rich people going down their taxes. So back to my point, if you take a progressive tax scale and then you just lower a tax cut, yeah, that's a legit question. What did you do to deserve that tax cut? What did you do to earn it? Because what are the reasons and rationales for having tax rates at a specific rate? So, or having a progressive tax rate. You want to have the burden of taxes mainly on rich people because they have more money. And also, you want to have recirculation of money in society, because what happens when, and it's very well known, what happens when the wealthy have too much money? They don't use it. They just stuff it. They just stuff it and they don't use it. And when your everyday person has it, they're obviously going to use their money on stuff to buy stuff, because they're actually, they don't have enough money to just stuff it away like that. So that's why we have that, and you need to recirculate money into the economy. And so when you start lowering the tax rates, yeah, it's a legit question. What did you do to deserve or earn that? You didn't do shit. And the idea is that if you're to give a tax cut, there's in some way reimbursement on society in terms of the economy. But as we know, big businesses do not reimburse. Remember, when after it happened, there were polls done, as well as companies laying off their workers, shipping jobs overseas, and not giving them raises. And what does a company do when they get a tax cut? Do they go out and hire more people? Do they go out and give raises to their workers? No. Do you know what they do? It's called a stock buyback. You buy more of your own stock. That's what you do. So they're not taking the money and buying more workers or giving it to, more people. What they're doing is they're buying back stocks and buying shit tons of stock, of their own stock. And it is very well known that that's what they do. Shares, you just buy more shares and stocks instead. And so that's the point that David's making when he says, he doesn't hire based on demand, which we'll get into in a second. That's kind of what he, what he's talking about. So, and I also want to show you guys another clip here where he basically says that there's a David Pakman, getting lower taxes and being against is antithetical to progressivism. Check it out.
Launches an attack at the tax cuts he has now received. And I tell you what, I have no idea why, and I don't think it's a winning policy for 2020. Democrats, we're going to raise your fucking taxes.
I didn't do anything. The David Pakman Show grew in 2018, not insignificantly, and yet my effective tax rate went down by almost 13%.
This is completely antithetical to the progressive mindset because they only view the world in terms of people who are utterly destitute and the ultra rich. Is if his taxes go down and his profits go up, he makes a lot more money and he has a medium-sized show. That's really good for him as a business and him as an individual succeeding by running a business. This is really great for him, and it seems to be the opposite of what the progressives are advocating for. And so he seems like this is a moral conundrum. There's something wrong, even though he hasn't done anything morally objectionable, and neither has Donald Trump in regards to cutting the taxes.
So first of all, I want to say that there are a lot of advocates of small businesses amongst liberals and the Democrats. I believe Obama had cut taxes like 8 times for small businesses. Remember, AOC, they tried doing this like faux expose of AOC, where they were like, oh, look, AOC, when she was, working at a small business or whatever, advocated for small business tax cuts. And then she responded saying, no, doofus, it's not, ideologically contradictory to have high taxes on businesses that have a shitload of money and small businesses which are just making it by. So that's not antithetical. What David here really is talking about is 2 things. Is that lowering of the tax rate, right? For him, he's looking at it in a way of, I didn't need to go down in my tax rate. So Sargon here seems to be like, and I don't know where he wants, does he have a number he wants the taxes to be at? What does he want David's rate to be at? That's my question. What does he want it to be at? What is the number? Because what is your policy just lowered until it fucking grits? What do you want it to be at? 8%, 10%? What do you want it to be at? Because I think he said it was at like 22% effective or something. You want it to just keep going down? What is your number? So that's my problem is, in David's mind, it's like, okay, that's the right number for it to be at. Why did it just get lowered for no apparent reason? Because you can't just keep lowering and lowering and lowering taxes. You're going to get to zero, and you're going to get so low that you don't have, obviously enough funding. And also the money circulation problem kicks in too, where wealth starts getting concentrated amongst certain people. But now, the other point being made by David essentially is that my business tax cuts went down. Imagine what the numbers are like for the big businesses who have a lot more money and a lot more income than I do. That's the main indicator here. And so Sargon, is trying to focus in on David Pakman when it's not really about David Pakman. It's more of an indicator. But even about David Pakman, though, what he's trying to say is like, why did mine get lowered? I mean, I'm not hiring more people. And by the way, I do think David Pakman should give producer Pat a raise. I think that'd be the right thing to do. But the point is that the big businesses that David is talking about, they don't give their employees raises. They don't hire more people, and they just end up buying back stocks. Dude, I read articles about this. They just buy back stocks. They just buy more stock in their own company. They don't actually give their workers raises. They don't hire more people. And actually, I saw a video of a tax expert literally saying that in this current tax plan that Donald Trump had put in place, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it actually incentivizes manufacturing to be shipped overseas. So that's also another thing there. But here we're now going to look at another clip here of Sargon. Check it out.
There is no moral objection here.
So let's ask the question, is this good for the economy?
Why wouldn't it be?
Let's explore that, because the right says it's good to give tax cuts to businesses because they will produce more, they will hire more people, and it's going to be a big, big win for everybody.
Well, it goes further than just employing people to do things. It's actually based around the transactions that are happening that I think the sort of real meat of the issue is. And I think that the argument that they make is if you have more money after you've paid your taxes, then you will buy more things and you will create wealth for other people in the spending of your money and end up growing the economy that way. So yeah, it seems that that's the case. It's like Milton Friedman's pencil example, isn't it? You might buy one pack of pencils from a shop because you had a bit of extra money that you thought you'd spend on stationery or something. But that's tens of thousands of people all around the world who you're helping to employ. And so you're making them richer than they were before by buying their product. And so you having more money means you can buy more things, which means businesses will require more employees because they'll need to keep up with demand.
And so then he starts defending his position of lowering taxes. I don't know why Sargon has all of a sudden new love for lowering taxes. I don't know why Sargon is somebody who has all of a sudden taken this. I don't know if fiscally he was always like this, but you can wash away any idea that this fuckhead is a liberal in any way, whatever that means in his context. But when you're citing Milton Friedman and you're just advocating for just lowering taxes across the board because you're a doofus, you're not liberal in any sense. And this guy's totally gone off the deep end completely. But so basically what he's trying to say is that like lowering taxes is good for small businesses. Now that's actually true. So lowering taxes, now again, just saying lowering taxes for the purpose of lowering taxes is stupid. You have to find the right number. Okay, that's the one thing, first of all. But yes, having having a lot of things tax deductible as well as tax credits for small businesses is actually a great idea, and it is something certainly, we have a lot of those already in place, but more can certainly be put in. But the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is horrible for the economy and the United States because 83% of the tax cuts went to the top 1%. So you start cutting off real progressive taxation, and you start getting into a situation where the burden is lessened upon the rich people in terms of funding the government, and you end up getting into a position that is essentially antithetical to any sort of progressive scenario or situation. That's basically what you end up getting into. And he uses the Milton Friedman pencil example. I didn't know about this example, but he's basically saying that people who buy pencils, if you have thousands of people buying pencils that end up getting jobs, that's a, very theoretical way to think about things. But if you really are to think about that, like, let's say you give a tax cut. First of all, I want to make this very clear. This doesn't even really work because remember, as I just told you, the big businesses, the rich people, are not giving raises or creating more jobs because of tax cuts. They just buy back stocks. There's no incentive for them to hire more people or to give raises. They don't. What's the purpose of that? They just buy back stocks. But let's even say they did. Are you really like that's such a minor thing, like buying pencils or buying smoothies or something like that? Do you like how many more jobs are created from people buying that? You know what I mean? Like how many boxes of pencils have to be sold? Because pencils are, they're in abundance. They're, fastly manufactured. You go to a store, you see a big ass pack of pencils for like a couple bucks because the manufacturing isn't expensive. So how many more jobs are you creating by thousands of people buying pencils? Seriously, dude, that's not like something, especially in an economy that's at least superficially performing well. So like, let's talk about this economy here where, you've got the fake unemployment numbers that Obama was coasting on as well as Trump is now lying about, where it's at like 5% when really it's a lot higher than that because they use the U3 numbers instead of the U6. But basically, you have this superficial economy that's supposedly doing well, which is not really because people are still struggling heavily. And the unemployment numbers are super, deflated to try and make the presidency look good for obvious reasons. But, when you talk about an economy like this, you're not really going to see any production from that specific action. So what I mean by that is if you have a superficial economy that's doing like somewhat, supposedly well right now, if you were to do like some sort of a like little tax cut for the middle class, the economy's not really going to exhibit any of those effects. Now, in other situations in the economy, it certainly can be expressed that way, but it's not big enough. It doesn't have as much significance in an economy that's superficially doing well. So that's the thing. You're not going to, there's the law of diminishing returns in essentially everything. At some point, giving that little tax cut so people can buy smoothies and stuff like that isn't actually going to end up doing it to the extent that you think it is. But again, I want to repeat. That's more of like somewhat of a steal, man, because listen, man, as I just said multiple times, big businesses are not doing that. They're not giving raises. They're not, getting more jobs. And as David says, hire based on demand. So this newfound money, now he should give Pat a raise, but he certainly doesn't really have much of a incentive to do that. Anyways, this is the last clip we're going to be looking at, which is really funny. Sargon thinks that the argument that there's this really dumb argument made by people like him who are like, well, if you want higher taxes, just donate your money to the government. Check it out.
You might say, David, well, then just send in more money to the federal government. That's not tax policy. Me choosing to pay 26% instead of 22%, that's not policy. That's not money that the government has budgeted for. It's not money that would be used in any productive way when it's not actually expected to be tax revenues on the basis of a broader tax plan. Me sending in more money is just one of those ridiculous right-wing sort of libertarian-ish, cartoonish ideas.
Well, that's lucky then, isn't it? Because otherwise you'd have to send the government some money that you otherwise wouldn't want to send them. But that mean, that would be a ridiculous, cartoonish, libertarian perspective. So you're not going to do that. So you end up with a bit more money and you feel morally justified in complaining that you have more money. Even though it's a win-win for, everyone but the bureaucrats, I guess. But I mean, I love the reasoning. Oh, no, they wouldn't expect it. They'd just waste it. Yeah, there's a lot of that, David. There is a lot of that. But I think they wouldn't turn down free money if they were offering. It is silly, though, because it is silly, really, ultimately, to complain about getting a tax cut.
You want to know why that argument is so cartoonishly stupid? Think about it like this, right? Let's think out a situation like that. Let's say you're talking to David Pakman, and you go, hey, you should do a patriotic donation of what's like the gap, like $10,000, like max 20K. All right, then what? He sent it. Now what? Nothing. That doesn't do shit, because the purpose of what David Pakman is advocating for is we need to remember, what are the goals of a progressive tax system? The burden of the government is funded by rich people because they have more money, and B, recirculation of wealth, so that there is, you basically are putting it so that there are certain controls, and then there's wealth being recirculated into the economy so that it affects and is actually seen by poor and middle class people. And more importantly is funding these specific programs that we support. So what the fuck does him sending in his 20K do? Nothing. It's a really hilariously stupid talking point, dumb idea it's not even a talking point. I think it's too embarrassing of a statement or argument, I should say, for them to even, use. I've really rarely heard this one. But again, just think about it like this. David Pakman sends in 20K, whatever the gap was between his current taxes and last year's taxes. Then what? When you advocate for a higher tax system, a higher tax rate, what happens? That means that the tax rates are higher and those people have to pay it. Then something's actually happening. This sounds like that dumb Jordan Peterson garbage hunk of trash, which is that, you care about climate change? Well, fix your own house first. So, don't drive a car. As if someone can solo dolo, come together and make a change. How? You have to have, in that situation, you have to have a society come together, because one person is so minuscule it doesn't do anything. So this argument is hilariously stupid, because just steelman it. Look at what happens. David Pakman sends in his money. Then what? Nothing. Because the burden is no longer on rich people to fund the taxes. The money's not going to where he wants to go, and the tax rates are not where he wants it at. It doesn't make any sense. It's literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Anyways, it's probably the first time I've seen Sarfraud basically say anything other than SJW bad, so I guess that's progress there. But anyways, this was a pretty interesting video to look at.